Actress Kristen Bell is no stranger to fairy tales. Bell voiced the lead in the animated film Frozen, but seems to have a big problem with other similar stories. In an interview with Parents Magazine, Bell suggested reading Snow White to her daughters required her challenging the problematic elements of the story. Not only is this a terrible misreading on the story, it highlights a bigger problem among leftists. They try to imprint their woke sense of morality on everything. One glaring example was when progressives did a revisionist history on the classic song Baby It's Cold Outside.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Recently, we've woken up to the song's more date-rapey undertones.
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
But Baby It's Cold Outside is still everywhere during the holiday season, and some are trying to save the song's reputation. A common excuse is, oh,
that's just how people talked back then. It's a sign of the times.
But if you dig a little bit deeper, it becomes clear that the male character was always intended to be a predator.
Bell's Hollywood compatriot Keira Knightley took the fairy tale finger-wagging one step further. She flat out banned her daughter from watching Cinderella and the Little Mermaid.
And she's banned from seeing certain children's movies, right?
Yeah.
What are they?
Cinderella, banned, because, you know, she waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't rescue yourself, obviously.
Right.
And this is the one that I'm quite annoyed about because I really like the film, but Little Mermaid. I mean, the songs are great, but do not give your voice up for a man. Hello? Wow.
One wonders if Knightley will ban Pirates of the Caribbean in her own house. Leftists cheer for female empowerment, but ironically disempower women when it comes to self-defense. NRA spokeswoman Dana Loesch pointed out this inconsistency.
But I also think of young women, and you've had a previous town hall where you spoke with a young woman named Kim Corbin, who was a college student who was brutally raped in her dorm, and she was under the age of 21. And one of the things that she speaks out about loudly now is how she wished she would have had the ability to be able to have a shotgun, whatever it was, to be able to defend herself. I was 20 years old when I lived on my own. I didn't live with my parents when I was 20.
The left would prefer women use alternative methods to protect themselves.
So, ladies, how would you defend yourself against a rapist? Would you fight back? Would you scream? How about tell your attacker you've got an STD? Well, the University of Colorado posted a list for tips for women on what to do if you're attacked, and it triggered a lot of outrage. Just to point out, for example, number 6 says, tell your attacker you have a disease or you're menstruating, okay? Number 7, tell your attacker, well, vomit on your attacker, urinate on your attacker. It'll convince them not to go after you.
The left's obsession with micro issues like Cinderella are indicative of their constant attack on social norms. Feminist scholars Camille Paglia and Christina Hoff Sommers criticize the excesses of the left.
What has happened is these young people now getting to college have no sense of history of any kind, no sense of history, no world geography, okay, no sense, okay, of the violence and the barbarities of history, okay. So they think that the whole world has always been like this, a kind of nice, comfortable world where you can go to the store and get orange juice and milk, and you can turn on the water and the hot water comes out, right? They have no sense whatever, okay, of destruction, okay, of the great civilizations that rose and fell and so on, and how, you know, and how arrogant people get when they're in a comfortable civilization, etc. Okay, right? So they now are being taught to look around them to see defects in America, which is the freest country in the history of the world, okay, and so on, and to feel, okay, that somehow America is the source of all evil in the universe. Okay? It's because they've never been exposed to the actual evil of the history of humanity. Okay? They know nothing. Okay?
Paglia and Sommers both fought for female equality of opportunity, but believe the feminist movement has gone too far. Second-wave feminism was co-opted by the communist movement. Conservative commentator Katie Pavlich analyzed the phenomenon when she attended a conference for the National Organization for Women.
They were selling books about Marxism and the feminist movement. Things like, oh, the Communist Manifesto was available for purchase at multiple exhibit tables. Picked up a copy. Things like, oh, I don't know, Education for Socialists. communist continuity and the fight for women's liberation. Documents of the Socialist Workers' Party. Now, these are only 2 books. I bought 5 of them. They didn't just give them to me, which I thought was weird, considering, you know, they wanted money for them. That's capitalism, right? I mean, it's weird. It's like, wait, you want me to give you money for these? Aren't they free? So that's the kind of material that they were selling at the NOW conference. And so I was quickly realizing as I'm there that NOW wasn't about women's rights, actually, but about socialism, big government, and abolishing capitalism. You know, when any conservative organization such as CPAC even has exhibitors that the mainstream media deems as radical, this leads to a number of headlines and news stories designed to embarrass the conservative movement. By contrast, when the nation's largest women's rights group features exhibitors that preach Marxist ideologies and condemn American capitalism, there is no comment about it anywhere. Good thing I went to that conference. But in fact, Marxist teaching is not a tiny fraction of the modern feminist agenda, and it's not a fringe movement either. It is its centerpiece. From the time of Karl Marx to the 1960s and up until today, the progressive women's rights movement has hardly been about women's rights at all, but instead about the transformation of American society and the transfer of wealth through government force. Women's rights have simply acted as a veil to distract away from the true intentions of progressive activists. The socialist revolution in America depended on 2 things: a breakdown of the family and women voting for progressives, both of which they have been very successful at doing.
According to leftists, we live in a capitalist, patriarchal system that must be dismantled. Part of the left's assault on the culture involves pathologizing masculine behavior as something inherently bad. Paglia and Summers also commented on the negative aspects of this attack on American masculinity.
Well, the way they're taught, as far as I can see, all they've been taught is no bullying, okay? Do not bully, okay? Right? You should be a nice person, okay? Because people are really nice, okay? And that really is that's the answer really to international affairs and geopolitics. Yeah. If we're nice, they'll be nice, okay? And if they're not being nice now, it's because we weren't nice to them in the past, okay? So, I mean, it is so naive. You cannot believe the naivety. And we're heading, okay, into this very murky future, okay, of the world, okay, with terrorism on the rise. And I don't know how this generation is going to cope with it. I don't think they have the ability to cope with it. And so I think we're heading towards something like late Rome, where you have a Praetorian Guard, or you have the military kind of in charge of politics and throwing one emperor out and putting another one in, like that. So it concerns me, because I think
the Vandals are, you know, we've got ISIS, I've been saying and we have the Chinese, but they have an excess of 1 million men in the military.
Yes.
So we get these hyper-masculine societies.
Exactly.
And we're, you know, worried about
and we're into like
toxic masculinity in the Ivy League.
Let's blend. Let's do like gender bending things. Meanwhile, you have like these, the Vandals and the Huns on the on the borderlines of the empire, etc.
The left knows no bounds, so there's never a point where they've gone too far. There's always a new grievance, and there's always something that's problematic. The left's new craze over transgenderism has in many ways pushed the feminist movement to the side. Longtime staunch feminist Germaine Greer found this out the hard way.
How do you feel about the idea that Newnham College, your own college, is considering not giving you an honorary doctorate, apparently because of what you've said about the transgender community?
There's been 2 votes at my college on the question of whether or not I should have an honorary degree, and I'm not going to get one. They've been turned down, which is thought by some people to be astonishing, but not by me.
So someone like Caitlyn Jenner, for example, who has been who's been in the front of lots of magazines and apparently is, I think I'm right in saying, getting an award for being a Glamour Woman of the Year. What do you think about that?
I think it's misogynist. I think misogyny plays a really big part in all of this. That a man who goes to these lengths will be a better woman than someone who was just born a woman.
If a man has his gender reassigned and outwardly, and he feels inwardly is a woman, in your view, can he be a woman or not?
No.
Do you understand how people feel that's insulting?
I don't care.
One only shudders to think of what the left will come up with next. If you would like more real news that you can trust, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel.